Hello, hello. I'm just going to check and make sure that you guys can see us, that we are live, and that we're in the right place. Give me 1 second before we get started. Um, that way you can find us. Let's see. I don't know that. No, it does not look like that we are live yet. Let me. It's saying it's giving it a few seconds. All right. There we are. There we go. All right. Let me close out my sound out of here. It looks like we finally are live. I find a little bit, I find LinkedIn Live a little confusing. So let's make sure you guys can all find us. And I want to be able to open up for comments, questions, all of that. So hop in and say hi if you are watching us live. All right, let's make sure our sound is good. All right, we are good. We are in business. We are good to go. So thank you guys for hopping in. If you're here, please say hi because we want to be able to do some Q&A. And if you're watching the recording, feel free to drop comments. Katrina and I will go back. We will look at the comments. We will message you all of the good things. So my name is Tara Garrity. I'm the founder of Hey Girl You Can. And Katrina, I'm going to introduce you to, for those of you who have not met her, she's been part of our Hey Girl You Can networking. So if you've been on our networking events, you will see her beautiful face. You will recognize her. But we were chatting because Katrina, you really have like mastered this online networking. I mean, this is your jam. You've gotten lots of clients from online networking. And I was kind of saying, hey, I would love for you to share like how you're utilizing this, the benefits that you're getting, because I think a lot of people are either intimidated to do online networking or they show up, they kind of pitch what they do, and then it's over and they're like, well, what was the point of that, right? And you've really harnessed this. So can you kind of introduce yourself, who you are, what you do? And then guys, we're just going to chat and answer questions and have fun today.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you for asking that question. So I'm Katrina Horn, and I'm a Dream Life designer and TEDx speaker. And I help my clients close the gap between their real lives and their ideal lives. And my business is life coaching. And that is why I really find that networking is the first and foremost way for me to find clients. So let me tell you how, because there's networking and networking. So to start off with, online networking is the same as in-person networking, right? In your mind, if you can train yourself to think about online networking as if you're meeting up with a real person, the way I'm meeting up with you now, Tara. So the only difference is, of course, actually, you're not drinking out of the same coffee pot or whatever. But I think the misconception often about networking is I go to this networking event and I'm going to find clients. And if that's your expectation, then you're going to be very, very disappointed because you don't. Now, I've been networking for only 1 year and it has just like doubled my business.
Wow.
Because
so wait, I want to back that up. So you've been now 1 year and it has doubled your business.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
You got it's amazing, isn't it? And I go to networking events not to find a client. I go to a networking event to create a connection and to meet people. So the way we met, Tara, the way I meet anybody is not to hard sell them. Like, I'm not going to meet you, Tara, and say, you should be getting life coaching from me, right? Here's my package, buy now.
Yeah.
And I find that many of the networking events are sort of centered around selling, in which case I don't attend, right? Because I'm really there to meet people so that we can be mutually beneficial. So you mentioned entrepreneurs. If you go to a networking event for entrepreneurs, well, they've got a business too. You've got a business, right? Everybody's got a business. How can you mutually be beneficial, if you see what I mean? So it's not about
really key. I want to kind of hone in on this a little bit. I think this phrase is really key. So I used to teach networking for for schools, for like adults who were getting back into the workforce and needed to learn how to network. And one of the things that I would always start with was the definition of networking, because people get confused what it means. And by definition, networking is exactly what Katrina just said, is it's a mutual benefit. And I think that's where people, when they forget that piece, their networking falls apart. Right. So I love that you actually like said exactly what it is. It's mutually beneficial. It's I'm meeting somebody. How can we both benefit from that? So I'm curious, like, do you guys normally, if you're watching, like, do you ever think of networking that way? Because I think a lot of people think of networking as like, I go there for what am I going to get from this?
Exactly, yeah. And I don't think you're going to get anything if you go with that kind of mindset. I mean, you might be lucky if you're selling sort of a low-end product, maybe you can sell a few, but if you're really in it for the long game, like for long-term results to your business, then it's the relationships you are nurturing that will bring you the business over time. And over time could be in 1 week, right? It could be next day, but please just think about it as I'm meeting other human beings who've got a business. How can we work together to create more results for both of our businesses? And when you go networking, like I'm a life coach, so I don't sell the people I'm networking with life coaching. I'm telling them what I do so that they can think about people they know. Oh, I know so-and-so, he or she might benefit from it. So instead of speaking to one person, I'm sort of making an ambassador out of that person who's going to go out into their network and speak about, oh, I met this person, she can help you. Right.
I'm curious, when you talk about that you've doubled your business through online networking, and you look at those clients that have come in, have they been people that you specifically met while you were networking, or were they people who were referred to you by people that you met while you were networking?
Both.
Okay.
But more often we find a way to JV so that we get to know each other more and we get to work on a project together that will be beneficial to both of us. So it comes back to you in a sort of roundabout way. Of course, I have had clients that I've met directly at a networking event. I've had friends of those clients become friends of the people I met at the networking event, become clients. So like one step out. And then I've had sometimes access to their whole network, which could be hundreds, if not thousands of people, because we've done a joint venture, because we had common interest and client overlap.
Yeah, when you talk about a joint venture, and I've heard you say this, like we find a project that we can work on together, give us some examples of what that would look like.
So for me, it's often giving like, how can I call that? Having a conversation where we invite other people in so that I can showcase the person I'm speaking with the way you are doing now, so that right now I'm getting in front of more people from your acquaintances, from your network, right? They're being exposed to me, so they know that I'm here. They might want to reach out to me later, or they might not, but you don't know. So all I've got to do is to agree with you on, we could call this a joint venture, like it's not monetized, but it's still free advertising, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I call that a joint venture. Then I can invite people on my podcast. I can be invited to podcasts. We can have a joint venture in the form of a retreat together, or I can call in services to my business to help me with an aspect of my business. That could be a joint venture. So you're meeting up with all these people who've got different skills that you haven't got, that you need to outsource anyway. And now you're meeting people that you might gel with, people that you might want to work with, and in a sort of relaxed atmosphere where you don't go straight into the job interview, right? You're just being yourself. You're meeting up with other people who've got common interests. And it's just really finding the point where you can work together.
This is one of the things that we talk about with the when we do it, and Katrina's been on it. We do a monthly Hey Girl You Can networking. And for those of you who don't know, years ago, I used to run large in-person networking events, and then have kind of gotten away from that. And we went into the Zoom networking events because it was a way to connect with, because our community is global, right? With women all over. And it really is different. I will say it's really different than when you maybe just talk to somebody on the phone versus when you see them and you do a Zoom and you connect. And with ours, as Katrina knows, we do breakout rooms. So you really get to have more like one-on-one conversations with people versus just kind of hopping in and doing, this is my 30-second what I do type thing. And you're trying to remember all these people here. So we try to really facilitate these conversations. And one of the things that we talk a lot about, and I wonder, we talk about it, but I wonder how many people implement it the way that you do. Because I keep hearing you say this term joint venture, which I haven't really used that term, but looking for ways, where can you cross promote? When you're networking, where can you, what can you give that person, going back to that mutual benefit, right? Where can you give that person an opportunity to get exposure? And where can that person give you? And so I love some of the things that you kind of brought up is like, do you have a podcast? Can you be a podcast guest, or can you get a guest on your podcast? One of the things that we do with Hey Girl You Can is the blog. Do you want to write for the blog that gives somebody exposure, or do you want to be a meet the member? I'm kind of moving away to that now onto LinkedIn, but now I'm doing more of these LinkedIn lives. But there had been a season where I was doing like Instagram lives. So if you have somebody who Instagram is really where they live and that's their big place, is we were doing Instagram lives where we would just, connect and do something like this just over Instagram. Or maybe you have a Facebook group and you could bring that person into your Facebook group and have them share their wisdom with your community, or they could bring, you could go into their community. Like, I really love that, where you're looking at how can we share each other, because I do think it's often, and I used to see this in the in-person, because I hosted one that was a monthly in-person event, and there were maybe about 25 people who would come regularly, and I would see this all the time. Somebody would come one time, they would show up with their business cards, they would hand out all their business cards, right? They would expect to get business from someone there, not get business from someone there that day, like from those 20 or 25 people, and then they would never come back. And I would always think that is so short-sighted, because those 25 people each know 100 people, right? And like, you want people to refer you. You want people to say exactly what you're saying. Like, I know this girl, Katrina, she'd be really great. You should talk to her. But nobody is going to do that with somebody that they met one time for 2 minutes. Like, you need to see that person over and over again. You have to build that trust, particularly when you're somebody like a coach, right? Like I think you said in the beginning, yeah, maybe if you have a small ticket, item, but if you're looking for somebody who's going to invest in working with somebody, that takes trust and that takes time, right?
Exactly. So there's that time factor, there's that trust factor that you need to build. But can I just also add that the magic is not in the event itself, it's what you do with it afterwards.
Yes. Let's get into that. Give us examples of like what you do afterwards, because this is so fascinating to me. So I have to tell you, Katrina, all the years that I've been networking. So we're talking, guys, about like a quarter of a century, like 25 years I've been networking, right? And I have had so many people say to me, can I have your card? Can I have your card? Can I take your information? Do you know that I really can't count on one hand the number of people who followed up with me after they met me at an event? Out of all of the networking events that I've been to, right? So this is just wild to me. So I would love to hear, like, what do you do after an event for somebody who comes to a networking event, or like maybe you're somebody who you've been to networking events, but you are that person going, yeah, I feel like I go to them and I never really get anything from it, or nothing comes from it. Or I'm kind of scared to go to one. I don't really know what to do. Like, okay, I'm going to go to one and I'm going to tell people, what do I do? But what do I do next? Can you kind of walk people through like best practices for after an event?
Yeah, in my experience, it's been really good to focus on a few people. Like if there's 20 people in the room, in the Zoom room or live, if there are 20 people there, it would be a big task to follow up with 20 people, but you are allowed to choose. So however many you can accommodate into your schedule, you can follow up with 3, 4, maybe 5 people, right? Send out a request to meet up, like as simply as possible, making it easy for the person to say yes or no, whatever they want, but have something that you can remember about them from the event and say, this really caught my attention. Would you like for us to discuss this further in a virtual coffee, and then have a little meeting scheduled, and where you follow up with a person, not to sell them, right? Not to tell them, buy from me, but to find out more about them. How can I be useful to you? I like to ask, how can we find a way to just make our circles bigger, really? We don't know what will come of it, but as long as we haven't met up, as long as we don't really know each other, well, we're not creating anything. If at least we meet up, we might find nothing to do together, but then we might find a lot of things we can do together. So
I'm going to put this in the chat. How can I be useful to you? I love that phrase.
So I always come from service. I find that makes it really comfortable for me to connect with people. If we want to connect with people to sell them something, it can feel sort of icky. But if you just think, okay, I'm not here to sell somebody, I'm not here to make money, I'm just here to get to know a person. What can I do for them? See where it goes. I've got no hidden agenda. I'm just here to serve. I like to come with that attitude, and then I find the most fascinating people.
Well, and I think that you have to have a high level of trust to come with that attitude, right? Like you have to have enough trust that the universe has your back, that like God has your back, that if you show up with what I just heard you say, with no hidden agenda, with how can I serve, with how can I be useful for you, with I'm not just looking at where I can get my next paycheck, that there has to be a trust. You have to trust that if I come with these intentions, the universe will pay me back, that I will find clients, that I will get the booking that I need, that I will get what I need when I can give enough people what they need, right? And that I think is where a lot of people, we don't have that trust, we don't have that confidence that if I just come in with a servant attitude.
Right. We think we have to manipulate the universe to get what we want, don't we? But we can actually just buy into the trust. Like, well, why not go along and just see what happens? I mean, networking events online are almost free, right? So what do you risk? Perhaps $5, $10? That's all you risk. And an hour or two of your time, what do you risk? Go in there with an open mind. Be prepared to meet fascinating people. Choose a few to follow up with, like, oh, this person sounds really interesting, not from a selling point of view, but from a human perspective. Oh, I think this person has got something in common with me. I'd really love to know more about it. So when you go in
too, that I like your strategy too, that you're not following up with everybody, that you're really selecting, if you guys heard, like 3 to 5 people that I really want to make a genuine connection with. I think that's a great strategy.
It has proved so to me from a business point of view, but I'm not able to quantify in a networking event how much money I'm going to make, if you see what I mean, because it's just totally unpredictable. You make one connection, you don't know where it goes, and then you follow up, and then you just...
How do you decide, Katrina, like when you're in there and you're saying, okay, I'm going to follow up with 3 to 5 people, how are you choosing those 3 to 5 people that you want to follow up with? Like, how do you think somebody should kind of narrow that down?
I don't think people should anything, but I just like to emotionally connect with people. Some people I find more interesting than others. So I connect with them. So just purely by whom I like. Also, if I think, oh, this person, I could put that person in contact with that person, and the two of them could be mutually useful, then I will follow up with that person and say, would you like to be introduced to so-and-so? So I'm making connections in networks that, or with people who might not otherwise have met each other. So it's not just about me, right? It's about how can we do that? I believe that if I do that for other people, then other people will do that for me.
Yeah, I think this is huge too. Because I do see this is that, and it's not, and this is the part where you have to be careful because it can't be in a manipulative way, right? If you're genuinely like, Katrina, I have this great opportunity for you to connect with this person, and I want to connect you guys, and this works out well for you, you're going to naturally want to find a way to reciprocate that. The key is if I'm going in with the idea of like, oh, I'm just doing this so that you'll reciprocate it to me, then it doesn't work, right? You have to go in with like the genuineness of, I really have this great opportunity for you. but there's just a natural like karma in the world, right? That when you help somebody get what they want or what they need, they naturally are going to look for opportunities to reciprocate that to you. And it's been funny. There's been times that I've done that where it hasn't been like from that person. So let's say it's like, oh, Katrina, I have this great connection for you, right? And then it's not that Katrina will pay me back, but this is where like the trusting in the universe will. It's not like Katrina's going to reciprocate it, but somewhere at a left field, then you get a connection or somebody who reaches out to you and you're like, where did that come from? And it's because, again, like the universe, God, whatever you want, like there's this karma that, well, you put over here, we're going to give you back over here. And it's wild how that happens. I also want to touch on, you brought up a really good point with the online networking, because, you know, in-person networking is really different, because in-person networking, you might be driving, you know, a distance to an event. Usually in-person networking has a higher ticket price. You know, you're paying for a larger ticket price or you're paying for lunch. And I think there's a lot of value in in-person networking. I've run in-person networking groups. We do a couple of Hey Girl, You Can in-person networking groups. So I think there's a different connection and value in being able to be in somebody's space. And so I don't want to discount that. I do, however, think that online networking overcomes a lot of obstacles. You know, you don't have to drive anywhere. You have access to people literally all over the world. So it's not just the people in your own backyard. The price point is usually a lot cheaper. I mean, our events are $10, right? And we have a membership that's going to be coming out. If for any of you guys who are interested, you can message me. I'll get you on the wait list. Our membership will be under $10 a month and we'll include a networking event. So, I mean, it is super cheap. And Katrina's heard me say this. The only reason that we charge for the networking event is that we do want people to have skin in the game so that they show up. You know, we found that when people just register for free, then they don't show up, and it's not fair to the people who have set aside the time to be there, right? But you're looking at a very, very low cost. And because you're not driving anywhere, it really could be like an hour of your time. So I love that you're kind of saying there's like this no risk. How do you, I guess, do you have any strategies or tips on how you kind of organize the people that you're meeting at events? Or how you're picking and choosing which events to go to, because you really, and how many you do on a regular basis. And I have to say, guys, because I've been teaching networking for a long time. And when Katrina and I were talking at the last event, I was very impressed that your heart and the way that you network and your thoughts about networking are so very succinctly aligned with how I view networking. And so when you shared with me, you know, I'm getting so many clients from online networking, it didn't surprise me. Because I think you're doing it with the right intent and the right work in the way that works. What I do think is really interesting is that there are a lot of people who have the same intent, but they don't get the same results. And so I'd really love for you to share like specifics of how you're kind of bridging that into turning that person into a client.
Yeah, I think it's taking the pressure off, because many people are new to networking, they think, oh, I have to go and sell, and that has them feel really awful because they don't like selling, right? So once you take that off the table, you can start being really curious. Like today, I went to a networking event, met a person who has a travel agency. I thought, oh, she sounds really interesting. Let me schedule a follow-up with her. So knowing nothing about her, I'm going to meet up with her and see what she's all about. I think she could be a wonderful guest for my podcast, but I don't know. I'm willing to find out, right? I'm not selling her coaching. I'm not selling coaching to her friends. But when we meet up, I'm sure we'll talk about what I do and what she does. And if she knows anybody who could benefit from my coaching, well, by all means, go ahead. But I think the factor is being curious and not having sort of a pre-rehearsed thing that you want to say to people. Just be who you are, if you can, right? Be who you are. Be really curious about the person in front of you. Ask questions, find out about them, what makes them tick. You know, the more you get to know them, the more likely you are to find a point where both of you connect.
So when you're connecting with somebody, can you give us some examples? So like, let's say we're having this chat. We met at a networking event. Now we're on kind of like a Zoom coffee, and I'm getting to know you and you're getting to know me. And you want to let me know what it is that you do. But again, we're going to go back to like this. It's not a selling, it's not a pressure thing. Can you give me some examples of like how you, particularly with coaching, right? Because coaching is such a big, there's a lot of coaches. Like, how do you set yourself apart so that I say, oh, she's somebody that I would want to refer people to? Like, can you dive a little bit more into like what that looks like that's not salesy?
Yes, so I'm not selling, and I would just simply say I'm Katrina. I'm a Dream Life designer and TEDx speaker. And
But I just love that you call yourself a Dream Life designer. I think that's like the coolest title.
I think so too.
Yeah, I love it.
It all really started because I was born in Denmark, so that might seem of no consequence. But when I was very young, I got the crazy idea I wanted to play the harp. And I thought, oh, let me go to London to music college to do so. So everybody told me that is so unrealistic, Katrina. But then I did. Then I did. And that got me thinking I could do anything I wanted to. Right. And that's how I became a life coach, because I noticed that most people can do anything they put their minds to. And that's how I help my clients. So I would give a little story like that so people would get a flavor, not of what I do, not about my coaching process, not about anything like technical, but just so they get an idea of who I am, why I've got an accent and why I say Katrina, not Katrine. And, it gives them an opportunity to ask me questions about me and my life.
Well, and also we remember stories. Right. So like our brains remember stories. So we're more likely now to remember. And every time I see you, to picture a harp, right? Like it's just it. So there's like a lot of a brilliant. Oh, yeah, oh, that's wild. Oh my goodness. And I can't believe that people would talk you out of that. That's kind of sad. But people would say that's wild. But so like how many of you guys know, like, right, we're always going to remember Katrina and the harp. So there's something also very psychologically brilliant about that, about tying what you do into a story, because we connect with stories, we remember stories. There's a difference between versus somebody saying, hey, my name is Katrina Horn and I'm a life coach and I help people design their dream life. Like that is so okay. And so I love that piece.
But could you also notice that when you say, hello, my name is Katrina Horn, I'm a life coach, I'm not being myself, right? People don't know who I am. They haven't really felt who I am. I think communication is just 7% words, and the rest is just like we take in who the person is differently, don't we? So why don't you allow other people that chance to take you in without you controlling it through words?
I love that. I love that. So when you're choosing different events, how are you choosing your events, but then also what are you doing on the back end to kind of organize all of that? Because you can, I mean, and I know that I'm guilty of this, right? Like we meet all these people and then people fall through the cracks and we don't follow up. Do you have any systems in place behind that and how you're choosing and finding events and things like that? Because I will say one thing that Katrina said to me, which kind of I was like, oh, this is a good, she's like, behavioral events are really hard to find. They're on our website, but they, if you go to the events and they are on Eventbrite, I'm kind of going back and forth. I will say if anybody has something that they like better than Eventbrite, please let me know. Because I know they've changed a lot of what they're doing. And I don't think they're super easy to be found there. So how are you finding your events? How do you determine which ones are really worth going to and which ones aren't? And then what do you do on the back end, like to organize all your people that you're meeting?
Yeah, so I found Hey Girl on Eventbrite. It was when I wanted to go to the second one. I couldn't find it again. So I don't know how Eventbrite works, but it doesn't work.
Me neither.
So when I meet somebody at a networking event and I have a follow-up, I ask them whether they've got any other good networking groups to recommend. And having done networking for a year and 2 months now, I'm noticing that I enjoy the women's networking most, and they lead to more collaborations and more clients. So now I'm not excluding men, but going to the little networking event where people are small business owners, sort of in the grind, not open to coaching, never having heard of coaching, is not my ideal scene because I have to educate them first. So I'm setting those aside, and I'm choosing networking events that are either led by coaches or where there is some sort of training component to them, like the idea that we can actually design our lives and not live by default. So it has to be sort of incorporated into the group. That is where I find it's easier to make connections. There are other coaches there, so I'm not the only one battling along, if you see what I mean. It's a common sort of notion that coaching exists and it improves your life. So I don't have that hurdle to overcome. When I say I'm a life coach, people know what it is. When I go to different kinds of networking events, people don't know what coaching is. They think it's sports. But that's
I guess because I'm so immersed in like the personal development and the growth mindset world that's wild to me that people don't even know what life coaching is. I'm like, really?
Come over to Europe, find out.
That's fascinating. Well, here's what I would say that is very, and I do wonder now you got me curious. I wonder if that's an American versus European, kind of thing. So if you're watching and let us know where you're from and do you know what coaching is? Like, I'm kind of curious if that's just more of an American thing. But one thing that I found really interesting about what you said and what I heard you say was that you look for groups where there already are other coaches. And this I want to kind of back on because I think sometimes people, and I've seen this, they go, well, I don't want to be in this group because there's already a realtor in this group. There's already an insurance person in this group. There's already a coach in this group. I need to find a group where I'm the only one. And you're actually doing a completely opposite strategy, which is really fascinating. So given that, I guess, then how do you, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, because the way I'm thinking, how do you not feel that, oh gosh, if there's 5 coaches in the group, there's no place for me, or that's too much competition, right? Because this is what I've heard from, I hear from other people. It's like, well, I don't want to be in some place where you already have 5 coaches. There's too much competition. And clearly you're on the opposite end, but this is working for you.
Yeah, so very good question. Think about going to the high street, or in the States, that would perhaps be the mall. So there are lots of shops or lots of stores, right? You go there because you've got different choices. So if you want to buy a dress, there are several shops selling dresses. If you went to a place where there was only one dress to buy, you might not like it. So I think for people, should they be looking for coaching, it's so good to go and see several of them because, like dresses, some you like more than others, and it's so individual, isn't it? So how could I possibly predict going into a group, who's going to be there and if they're going to like me? I can't. But I'm thinking there are other coaches there. Well, that means people are interested in coaching, at least. Like if I had a clothes shop on a high street in Britain, I wanted to sell dresses, I'd be very thrilled that there were other clothes shops in the same street because people would be coming there to buy clothes. Do you see my sort of reasoning here?
Yeah, how many of you guys have heard that before? That's great reasoning. I love that analogy. I had read somewhere there's a study. I thought this is very interesting, at least in America. If you ever notice when you drive and you see a gas station, there will usually be 2 or 3 gas stations within the same corner. And you would think that would be dumb, right? Like there should only be 1 gas station. Why would you put 3? But they actually found that people are more likely to stop and get gas when there's 2 or 3 in a corner. And so if you've ever wondered why there's always 2 or 3 gas stations together on the same corners, it's because that's when people will stop and buy gas versus if they just drive by 1 gas station. So for the same kind of concept that you're talking about.
Exactly. But just think, if there are 5 coaches in a group, it means that coaching is a thing, right? If there are no coaches, well, what's there to prove that coaching is a thing?
Interesting. Isn't it so interesting how it really just is how you choose to view something? Right? You could have 2 people with the exact same thing. It's just how you choose to view it.
Right.
I love that.
The coaching world's version of a red dress, and then the other coaches could be versions of different dresses, right? And for one person, there's one we want, and we don't want the others. So makes sense.
And I think it's also that it's not a good or a bad. It's not You're not saying, oh, there's some good coaches and there's some bad coaches and I'm a really good one, so I'm going to stand out. It really is the idea that we're just all different and we connect with different people, whether that's an energy level, even just a speed, a tone, how somebody talks, how somebody moves. It's not a good or bad, it's just who you're comfortable with, who said, who do you resonate with? Just even on an energetic level, that could be really different. So what do you do after? Some tips. And guys, we have a few minutes left, so I do want to say thank you for those of you who I see who are watching us with live. If you have questions, jot them in the chat here. I am monitoring the chat and I do want to be able to answer any questions that you have about networking. If you're watching the replay, again, feel free to go back and drop those in the chat because we'll stick this in our newsletter too. And so feel free to, if you have questions, or even comments or anything that you've shared that works with you, go ahead, put those in there. We'll start to share those. But what do you do on the back end? Like, okay, you've picked out these networking events, you've gone to these events, you connected, you're going in curiously, you're going in with okay, how can I be here to serve? What do you have kind of like any secrets or systems that you do after the event is over to kind of stay organized, to make sure things don't fall through the cracks, stuff like that?
Yes, so I don't. Here's what I do. I go on LinkedIn and I connect with people via LinkedIn and I ask them if they want to meet up for a virtual coffee chat. Once I've reached out, I'm waiting for their answer. If they say yes, I suggest a time and we take from there. So I'm just very, very respond or who forget. It was just not meant to be. So I'm very happy to follow up with the people who want to be followed up with, and the ones who don't, well, they don't, and I'm not going to force them, right? I just believe that my value is in the ones that want to create a relationship, to connect and get to know me, really. So I don't have a systematized way. I connect first via LinkedIn. I propose a time to meet up. If we meet up, then it could be that we've got a project going and then you move that forward. But it could be as simple as doing things. So I just schedule that into my scheduler, so I'm sure it won't get lost. And that's really my only system.
I really like that too, that the idea is, well, I'll reach out to the people, and the people who I'm meant to connect with, and the people who aren't. I used to say I have another business where we, work with clients and team members and stuff. And sometimes, you work with somebody and it ends up being a no. And you kind of go like, why did that not work out? I thought this was going to be a great client, or I thought this was going to be a great team member. And I've always kind of taken the mindset of sometimes God's no is God's protection. There's a reason that person said no. There's a reason that person didn't follow up with you. There's a reason that person didn't schedule the coffee chat. Maybe they were going to be your biggest headache client ever. Like the person that you were going to be like, oh my gosh, this person makes me want to just quit coaching, right? Like, just trust that if that connection didn't happen, sometimes that no is literally you're just being protected, and not get all hung up on, well, why didn't it work out? I thought this was a great connection and stuff. And sometimes there's just things that we will never know. Right? We will never know what was going on behind the scenes. I love, Katrina, that you operate with such a level of faith in that it will all work out. It'll just all work out. And I would imagine, having not been, being one of your coaching clients, but I'd imagine that same spirit is what you bring into your coaching and what you bring into working with people, of having people come from a place of just like a trust, a faith that things will work in your favor, that you're capable of everything, that you're capable of designing your dream life. And just imagine how empowering that must feel for your clients to have somebody be breathing that belief into them. So I do want to, before we finish up, I do want to plug you a little bit for people who are looking for coaching. Like, kind of tell us, what do you do and who is the ideal person who's going to benefit from working with you? Because I hope you guys can see and feel the same thing that I feel within Katrina's space, which is why I wanted to do the session with her, is that you just have this very lovely, beautiful, calming presence about you that I can see people just saying, I just want to sit in your space, the energy that you give out, even just in a virtual. Would you guys agree? You can feel somebody's energy even virtually, right? Because there is no, time and space. Like we do connect with people and you just have this very lovely presence about you. So for people who, particularly, going into, guys, it's the end of the year, we're kind of evaluating. I just sent out a question in our newsletter, and I'm sending out questions over the next few weeks of like, what should you be asking yourself in December? And one of the first ones was, where am I with the goals that I set at the beginning of the year? Did I hit these personal and professional goals? Did I not hit these personal professional goals? If I didn't, why not? Like, what are the things that have kind of, tripped me up this year, stood me up, or didn't work? And as we're kind of evaluating, then going into the new year, sometimes we need to do something different, right? Like we need to say, well, what do I need to have in place differently this year so that 12 months from now, I'm not in the same place, particularly if you're feeling like I am in the same place or I haven't made the progress that I want. And this is where someone like Katrina and coaching makes a difference, because it's having somebody there's a reason why, when you go and you play professional sports, you're the best, right? If you're playing a professional sport, you're already the highest skill level in the game, but you still need a coach, right? There are no Olympians who don't have coaches. These are Olympians. Like, think of like an Olympic swimmer. They're already the best swimmer. They still need a coach, right? Everybody, no matter how high you are, you need a coach to coach you to stay at that or to get to the best. Do you know what I mean? So this is where somebody like you comes in and says, okay, I'm going to come alongside you and work with you. So what kind of people, who's like your ideal person that benefits from working with you, and what kind of would they expect with working with you?
Yeah, so these people are people who want more out of life. They don't want cruise control, and they know there's more. So they feel they're not living up to their full potential, and they're eager to find out what's next. They might not know what's next, but then I can help them find out. And I think really one of the keys to happiness is when we get up with purpose. So we're sort of spurred on to get started with the day full of energy and desire to see what's in store that day. I think that is so much more life-giving than routine and living up to expectations that we can sometimes get into. So some of the things that stand in the way of that are people-pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination. So I would say that those are the three big areas I work with my clients on, knowing that stress is very much part of many, many, many people's lives. And I think we don't have to buy into it. So that's really where we start. We slow down. We slow down without missing out, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So we're actually doing, and guys, I'll actually put this in the comments too. We have and Katrina, if you don't have it, I emailed it out last night. If you don't have it, let me know. I'll send it to you. We have a Google survey going on for Hey Girl, You Can. Bribing you to fill it out. You can win a $25 Amazon gift card if you fill it out and give me your feedback. But kind of looking for what we're creating next year and looking at the different things that we're going to do with the community, offers that I'm coming out with, our membership, VIP days, things like that. I was like, well, let me first go and ask people what they want, right? Versus me sitting here and saying, let's design all this. Let's find out what people want. And it's been very interesting because one of the things that I'm seeing that's coming back in, just even in the first responses, is people are saying, I'm struggling with procrastination. So when you say procrastination because of unclear priorities. Like, I feel like I'm being pulled in too many different directions. I'm not really clear on how to prioritize. And so I'm kind of stuck, right? And these guys, these are women in our community who are high achieving women. These are women who are entrepreneurs, who are immersed in this growth, and they're still feeling like, I just don't know how to get to that next level. Right. And I need somebody to guide me to that next level. So I think that, what you're talking about with this procrastination, usually it's not even procrastination of laziness. It's just of like, I don't know what the next step is. And so I just I'm stuck.
Yeah, we feel stuck. And also we don't believe that what we want is possible. And then it becomes impossible to take action on it, doesn't it? Because there's no belief.
Yeah, I love one of the phrases that I use, and I started using this when my daughter was in the hospital. So when my daughter was in the hospital and they said, hey, kid's probably going to die of cancer, right? She's got one of the lowest cure rates that they have. Like, I was basically told, like, you need to prepare yourself. Your kid's not going to live. She has the low cure rate. I've shared the story. I remember sitting there and they're like, okay, so, she has a 40% cure rate, which in the childhood cancer world is very, very low. Right. And I remember sitting there because they were preparing me. I thought they were going to say like 1%, 2%. Right. So they say 40%. And I'll never forget. I was sitting there, I'm looking at the doctor, looking at the fellow, and I was like, wait, what? And they're like, yeah, she has 40%. And I was like almost 50%. And they were like, yeah. And I actually said to them, Katrina, I was like, oh, so that's like the divorce rate. It's like, I was like, people get married every single day with those stats. Like, that's great news. And they were looking at me like, this lady's insane, right? And I'm thinking, well, no, because people get married all the time and they know they have a 50% divorce rate. So that's like actually really, really good. And they were like, all right, well, we're going to have somebody come in and talk to you. Like, she clearly doesn't understand. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what? Even if they said 1%, my thought would be well, there's always going to be a 1%er. Why not me? Someone's going to be the 1%. Why not me? Right. And I would picture like as she got further along in treatment, the further along you got, the higher your numbers went up. So they knew that kids who survived to the end of treatment, and that obviously was not all of them, but the kids who survived to the end of treatment, 7 out of 10 of those children would live. And I would picture 7 little kids, and I would picture her being number 7. And I would think to myself, why not me? If someone's kid is going to be number 7, why not me? And I have used that so many other times in my life with goals for my job, with goals and things that I want to achieve. Of just, if somebody's going to do it, why not me? And I love that this is kind of where you come from. Like, if someone's going to write, look, guys, someone's going to write the next bestseller. Someone's going to write the next New York Times bestseller. Why not you? Someone's going to win the next Academy Award. Why not you? Someone's going to break the next Olympic record. Why not you? Someone's going to do the next most seen TEDx talk. Why not you? Like, if someone's going to do it, why not you? And I think we often go the opposite. Like, well, why would I? Why would it be me? Why? But why not? Right. So I love that this is where you approach it from.
So Tara, you've got this very naturally, that mindset, but some people actually struggle with it because they always see the glass as half empty rather than half full. But you can actually train your mind, and that's also coaching, right? Instead of focusing on the negative, you can focus on the positive and get a better life experience when you do focus on the success rate, right? Instead of focusing on the failure rate.
And I love this, guys, because if you go, oh my gosh, that's not how I would think. I would think, oh my gosh, 40%, that's right there. There's a good indicator. Do I need a coach? Like right there, that tells you, should I be working with Katrina? Like, I'll just tell you, right? Like, because and I know, I know my mind naturally goes that way. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's just from years of training and growth mindset and whatnot, but I will tell you, my daughter's mind naturally goes the other way. And we talk about that all the time. Her mind naturally goes this way. And that's frustrating as a parent, right? When you're not like that. And this is where I love what you talked about, is that if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, I know I always think like, why me, or this isn't going to happen for me, just the knowing that can change should give you hope. But it's not going to change by itself. You need to have somebody who is skilled, who knows how to support you in changing that. And that's why you want to reach out to Katrina. Because if you're like, I want to change this, I believe they're telling me I can change this. Maybe, let me see if I can. It's not going to magically happen on its own. Like, you're not going to rewire who you have been for the last 30, 40, 50 years on your own. You do need somebody who's going to coach you, support you, walk you through that, teach you how to do that. And that is the power of coaching. I mean, people change their lives through coaching, right? And I don't believe there's anybody at the top of their game who hasn't had a coach. I've had a coach from the time I started my business. I've had incredible coaches and mentors who poured into me. And the idea of a coach is that they're going to take you someplace that you cannot get by yourself. And that's why, I would encourage you to reach out to Katrina. So where can people find you? What can they get from you?
They can go to my website, which is katrinahorn.com. And they can
either put that in the comments right now, guys.
Okay. katrinahorn.com, and they can download my envisioning meditation if they want to find out what their dream life looks like. So that is also all very joyful to find out, well, actually, I want to be waking up in this magical place, and you're seeing it in your mind's eye. That can be very, very inspiring. And inspiration is what we need to take our first action step. Your first action step could also be to book a consult with me where I can take you through the whole process so that you will find out what your dream life looks like. So I'm very happy to do that for anybody watching this. Just reach out to me via my website. Sorry, website.
I just put website in there, and if that is wrong, I'll have you look at that at the end. If that is wrong for some reason, we will get that. Let me just open up, make sure that that is the right one, guys, that I'm sending you to the right place that you can connect with her. And then we have our next Hey Girl You Can. Is it KATRINEHORN.com?
That's right.
Okay, there she is. Follow your dreams. They know the way. I love this. And right there, you guys can go and book a free consultation. So that's awesome. And if you want to come to the next Hey Girl You Can networking event, it is going to be on December 12th. We do them once a month. They do change all the time. We've been doing a lot of Tuesdays because that does seem to work for a lot of people. Our January one will be on a Thursday. We try to hop it around a little bit so that if you can't come, but we do find that the daytime tends to work a little bit better because we have people from all different time zones. Like the two of us are on opposite sides of the country or the world. So we do try to make that in that morning time so that if you're in Europe, it's evening there, it's not super late. But we would love for you to come. And if you've never been to an event, you can use the coupon code. Just put in first time as your coupon code, and it will give you a free ticket. So you can come and check it out and see. Hopefully you love it and want to come back and find that is your space. If you are interested in learning more about the membership that's launching, and that will include free networking events, you could just shoot me a message and I'll send you the wait list to get on that. We're calling it I call it the drive-through membership here, at least in the US. You can't get through a drive-through for less than $10. But when you go through a drive-through, you don't choose everything on the menu, right? You pick and choose what you need at the moment. And that's what this membership is going to look like. It's $8. And every month you get access to different resources, people, guest speakers, classes, workshops, and you pick and choose what you need at that time, at that moment, which might look different. And 3 months from now, you might be like, I need some different stuff. And so you'll have access to all of that. And so we would love for you to be part of that. If you want to check that out, I'll send you over the link. Any final parting words you have for us, Katrina? I've loved talking with you. And thank you for being part of our networking and coming to our events. And I appreciate that.
Well, it's a value-packed event that attract people, isn't it? So, well, thank you for doing them. I would just say that if it was possible, just trust yourself, go along as yourself, not as some sort of sleazy salesperson who's trying to sell something to people who don't want it. So if you can just go along as your own beautiful self, people will be able to connect with that person and not with some sort of salesperson, right? And that is really, I think, the key to success.
I love that. So take all these tips and then join us in 2 weeks and see if you can start to put these into practice. So thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And I think, Katrina, I think once I end, it's going to disconnect us completely. I don't think I can stop it just on LinkedIn. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everyone.